So it's interesting. This incident has actually sparked a lot of unusual debates online, or maybe I should say usual debates between guys from like Chicago and guys from LA. For people that live outside of the United States and are watching from other countries, when it comes to like gangs in the United States, every city has gangs, especially every major city has gangs in America, but the epicenter really of gang culture in the United States, the two epicenters are Los Angeles and Chicago. That's where a lot of the gangs that you see that have gone national and even gone to other countries originated. The Crips, the Bloods, all that stuff originated like in California, and then in Chicago, you got the GDs, the Vice Lords, the Stones, and you see these gangs now, like in a lot of other cities in the Midwest and the South. But the Crips and the Bloods, that's even in other countries. A lot of times when you see it in other countries, I'm not sure if it's actually real and guys are actually banging that stuff, or if it's just like people taking pictures for social media, or something. I don't know. So, but definitely throughout the United States, those two cities in particular have originated, is where the birthplace of a lot of national gangs now. It's for black gangs and brown gangs too. I would say for white gangs, it's Chicago as well, but I'd say more New York than L.A. A lot of the organized crime that you see amongst like whites started in New York and on the East Coast, especially like with the Irish and the Italians. But this incident is interesting. I'm going to get to some of the debates that have been going on online about this in a second. But first, let's get to the details. They originally reported about a week ago that 3 Chicago gang members had been charged in the murders of 3 women who were ambushed near a rental property in an affluent neighborhood north of Beverly Hills in January. A guy named Dante, a guy named Dejan, and a guy named Darius. So from the information that I've gotten so far, the women were not apparently the intended targets. That's kind of like a controversial part of this story. Like I've seen people debating that, like whether or not they intended to kill the women. From the perspective that I got right now, it doesn't appear that that's the case. But anyways, Darius is 28. He was arrested in New York. So all 3 suspects, this case is going to go down in L.A. Jean is also charged with the murder of a guy named Julian, who was 30, in North Hollywood on December 16th of 2022. So the violence that occurs in Chicago today is having an effect on all of us. That's according to the LA police captain. So a woman named Destiny, 26, a woman named Nina, 29, and a woman named Ayana, who was 33, were fatally shot while sitting in a car near a rental home that cost $3 million. And this was in the neighborhood of Beverly Crest. This was on January 28th. And it was a mass shooting. Police considered it a mass shooting, but they said that it was not random. 4 other people, 3 men and a woman, were also wounded in the shooting. So 7 people in all, 3 died. The women were longtime friends who lived in Arizona but grew up, they said, on Chicago's South Side. 2 of the women were best friends since middle school, and one of them was a mom, but it's unclear how many children she had. So the one girl, whose name was Iana, she was an aspiring rapper. And she was out in California, they said, pursuing a recording career out there. This is according to SandraRose.com. The 3 women attended an album release party at the rental home, and they had just returned to the house from a bowling alley when the shooting occurred. So one of the women has 3 kids, ages 1, 5, and 6. And those kids are now being taken care of by her mother. That woman who was killed, they said that she was going to an album release party for a childhood friend. The mom said she was calling to check in, and I told her, don't worry about the kids, just enjoy yourself. She said, we're suffering over here. Her kids are suffering. Chicago is suffering. I don't wish this pain on nobody ever. So LAPD believes that it was a targeted shooting, because that these particular women were probably not the targets in particular. Now, it appears, like I said, that they just flamed everybody. So, I mean, that's how Chicago guys these days are doing it. So, as soon as I heard this, as soon as you hear this incident, they spray up a crowd and hit 3 women, kill 3 women. Chicago immediately pops in your mind, because this is, like I said, that's like this city right now to a T, unfortunately. And, like the LA guys, police guys said, the violence in Chicago is affecting us even out here, because these guys travel now, and we've seen that before in other incidents. Like these guys are going to other states, and then the stuff is going down over there. Atlanta is another place where a lot of guys from Chicago have gotten into it and been involved in bull crap down there. New York, we've seen a lot of stuff like that from Chicago guys going out in New York. So Chicago's taking its nonsense to all these other cities, man. But this had sparked a debate online about like how these guys were going to make it in the LA prison system. People were saying LA is a lot different, California is a lot different than Illinois, and people were saying Illinois is soft, and Illinois guys and Chicago guys can't fight, so these guys are going to be toast in that prison system out there. I look at the whole premise of that argument as kind of bogus. I'm not saying this just because I'm from Chicago and want to take up for Chicago or anything, but there's people that can fight and people that can't fight in every city, like in every city. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I went to high school here with guys that there was a couple guys like that were 17, 18 years old, were benching 400 plus pounds. It's at the age of 17. They were like 250, could bench at like 450. Would you want to get into a fight with one of those guys? I mean, there's guys here that can do all type of stuff. Like I've met guys here that could, with one hit probably, kill somebody. Which is one of the reasons that I am against the fighting, because the fighting here, it's just as deadly as the shooting, really. I mean, guys get beaten to death. Guys get hit. You hit somebody in the neck, step on their neck, hit them in the face too many times, and you can kill them. In fact, there's been some pretty high-profile guys here that have gotten in trouble for hitting somebody, punching somebody, and the person died. And then here, that's always gonna lead to shooting. Like his homies are gonna come back blowing. You do that. So. And plus, guys here, they fight with knives, especially a lot of the Latino gangs and stuff, they fight with knives. A lot of the white guys, too. But, the whole thing is, it's all violence. You know what I'm saying? Like, I see this is all part of the same thing, and there's no city that's more adept at one type of violence versus another. In Chicago, a lot of guys obviously have no aim. But then you guys got here that do have aim. But, the guys that have aim a lot of times are not the ones doing the shooting. It's the guys that don't. And same thing with the fighting. A lot of times the best fighters are the ones that are not fighting. Guys that have been in the military, guys that are former law enforcement, guys that have training and that type of thing, like they're not the ones out here that are usually fighting. It's all violence and it all leads to death. But I hope people don't start immediately jumping to the conclusion that these women must have, been involved with something, because I always see that too. Well, they must have, done something, or not necessarily, bro. I'm telling you, here in Chicago, the innocent get hit more than the guilty. At least that's like the way I see it. I mean, these little kids, these women, like a lot of them, some of the women are guilty, some of them aren't, okay? Even some of the little kids, might have been running packs for somebody, or, snitching on somebody, or doing something like that, and even killing people. Some kids do that, but the vast majority of the time, the little kids, and I would say probably half the time the women are not doing anything, and the guys too, a lot of times are not doing it. A lot of times, and this is like a pet peeve of mine, I see like these young black guys with their faces up there on the homicide report, and everybody's in the comment section talking about, well, he must have been involved in this. Like, you live by the sword, die by the sword. And like, I know about the guy, or knew the guy personally, and I know that he was a neutron that wasn't on nothing. But he's just from that demographic that's usually doing it, so everybody's like assuming that it must have been that, and it wasn't that. Like, I'd say probably half the time these young black and Latino guys are innocent too. So the back and forth between Chicago and LA to me is silly, man. We'll see what happens though. The one thing though is that the laws are not the same, man. Like, these laws here right now in Illinois are extremely, extremely lenient. Don't think you can get away with it out there, guys. Every state is not Illinois, and every place is not Chicago. So rest in peace to those three women though, man. It's gotten a lot of guys in Chicago into this lane where it's like everything's super soft, and then they go to these other cities and just get murked by the law. So, rest in peace to these three women, man. Their boy Wednesday report.